Good evening, my ghosts and ghouls and friends, my ghost hunters and spook stalkers and wraith chasers and whatever you decide to call yourself. Welcome back. If you're looking for the most haunted place in the podcasting, you found it. Most Haunted, Dan Terry. And we are going a little strange today. I had maybe, and I am not completely convinced, though everything seemed to point, one demonic case in my whole time, which is probably more like the average. But I was contacted by a guy living in a town, and it took him forever to get to the point. But when he started describing what was actually going on, I realized it had the earmarks of a demonic case. So I contacted a friend of mine, Stephen LaChance, who knows quite a bit about that. And he told me, yeah, okay, it's still in the house. We're in good shape. We can be there in about a week, and we'll see what happens. Because I don't know much about this. So I read The Demonologist back in the 80s. I read Father Martin's Hostage to the Devil, but just didn't have a big grasp on this topic. So the next day, the dad calls again and says, my son saw it on the bus. His son was seeing these things, and stuff was being knocked off counters at home and off the walls. And he said he saw it on the school bus. Well, I called Stephen, and he said, okay, we'll be right there. And him and my good friend Teresa Reevy, I think Tim Clifton was there. They fought this thing over the course of a night. They started upstairs, chased it downstairs with their prayers and salt and whatever else they were using, holy water. Somehow it got around them, went back upstairs. The fight started all over again. They finally got it out of the house, and the house sealed. And then some friends of theirs came by, and one of them, an alleged psychic, said, oh, there's a child outside, a spirit child. Come on in, honey. It's okay. Started all over again. That time, they got a Episcopalian priest who come in and took care of it finally, completely. That's been my only brush with demonic. But I've got a guest here that it's just exciting to read about her. She's a psychic, a medium, an author, military nurse, and wait for it, a demon seer. June Lundgren can see, hear, she can communicate with, and remove negative entities. Can you imagine walking down the street, me and you walking down the street together? I see, I don't know, 45-year-old man, approximately, a little overweight, broad-shouldered, seems like a decent guy. You look at the same person and see some kind of horrid fallen angel, a demon, horns or cat's eyes or whatever. She can see these things, and I am not altogether sure if it's a gift or a curse. But whatever it is, we're going to talk to June here in just a little bit. She's been on Coast to Coast AM, Midnight in the Desert, Ground Zero, America's Most Haunted, and she was with Ghost Adventurers on the Graveyard of the Pacific, which I also want to hear about. She's written books called Medium's Guide to Paranormal, Paranormal Encounters 1 and 2, The Dark Side of the Paranormal, and, of course, Demon Seer. And let's bring in June right now.
Hi.
I don't know if I should call this a curse or a gift. What do you think?
It's a calling. It's not something that you choose to do. It chooses you.
Okay.
And I've always been able to see demons in their true form. I don't see them as most humans do. Most humans will see them as their preconceived idea of what they should look like, because that's how demons work. They reach into your mind and they find your preconceived idea of what they should look like, And so they
Uh-huh.
show themselves to you as that only amplified 100-fold because it's all about eliciting fear.
Okay. So when you say, let's say, I'm seeing Tom Ellis from Lucifer. I'm taking it that's not what I'm looking at, right?
No, they're different. I've only had 2 people that ever wanted to see what I see, and they regret it.
Uh-huh.
I can let the person see what I see simply by holding their hand.
Oh,
And
that's intriguing.
yeah, and it's not, like I said, it's not for everyone. The first person that wanted to see it was a friend of mine who's an ordained minister. And
Uh-huh.
he's like, really, I want to see what you see. I said, no, you don't. I said, because I see them in their true form. He's like, no, I really do. I'm like, okay, just remember you asked for it. I said, hold my hand. He held my hand
Hmm.
and he's like, oh my God, oh my God. And then he let go of my hands. I'm like, I told you, you don't want to see what I see.
No,
And
June was what
he's
was you
like,
seeing at that time? Was there a person standing there? Was
no,
could he see a human, or he just saw an empty space?
he saw, without me touching him, he saw an
Hmm.
empty space. He could feel that there
Okay.
was something negative there. But I was out on a case in a wooded area, and across the street was an empty field.
Uh-huh.
And there were a bunch of them over there and running around. I told him, I said, look straight across the street. So he held my hand, looked straight across the street, and he said, "Oh my God!" He jerked his hand away. I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's not for the faint of heart." And he says, "I'll never forget this." And I'm like, because the demons are in their true form, they kind of resemble archangels in the way that they're 7 feet tall. They have
Okay.
12-foot wingspan, but they're coal black with shades of gray in it, and the features are almost non-existent except the eyes. And when you look at the eyes, there is every evil that you can ever imagine in the world, and then some in their
Hmm.
eyes. So once you lock eyes with them, all of that is like downloaded. You see it all. And that's what makes people break off. And it was the same way with Zach Baggins when he wanted to hold my hand. I said, "You don't want to see what I see." He's like,
Uh-huh.
"Oh, I've dealt with demons before." And I'm thinking to myself, no, not really.
Well, I would have said the same thing, but go on.
And he's like, I said, "Okay." I said, "Hold my hand." And so he held my hand, and what you don't hear on the show is that he tells me, at first I saw this white light. It was beautiful. It was full of love. And then all of a sudden it's like a curtain went up, and I saw this thing against the wall over there. And that's when he ripped his hand out of mine. And I told him, I said, what you saw in the beginning was the archangel that resides within me. I said, you
Uh-huh.
would see that. I said, but after that, what you saw was a demon that I had chained to the wall. And he's like,
Okay.
after letting go of my hand, I said, how's your back? Because they attack your weak spot. And his back hurt really bad. And I told him, I told Billy Tolley, who was doing my camera, and I said, he's going to see what I see. He's going to hear what I hear. Because he like
Hmm.
ran out of the hotel after that, literally ran out of the hotel into a waiting SUV and was gone. And he called Billy and said, you know, I don't think this woman knows what she's messing with. And he says,
Okay.
I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that, I'm hearing that. And he says, dude, she told me off camera. You're going to hear what she hears. You're going to see what she sees. You need to get back here and let her take that away from you. So
Yeah.
he
Oh,
finally
so it was
came
still
back,
going
and
on?
oh yeah, yeah, it would continue until I reversed it, until I took it back.
Okay.
So he came back and I took it away. And
Well,
he
I am
tweeted
no
out when he left, "I'll never forget this." And I'm thinking to myself, no, you won't.
I'm no fan of Bagans, but I will not curse him for that because I don't think I would want to see these things in their true form. In fact,
Yeah,
I'm sure I wouldn't.
I've grown up with them since when I was around 5. I used to see
Hmm.
them as a lot of people did, before then. I would see them as blobs or, masses and stuff. But something clicked at the age of around 5, and I started seeing them in their true form. And Michael, the archangel, who's always with me, he says, "Don't be afraid." He says, "This is how they truly look." He says,
Hmm.
"You are seeing them through the eyes of an angel." And you're 5 years old and you don't know. And you're thinking, "Oh, okay, it's okay. He'll take
Uh-huh.
care of me. I don't have to worry about it." But as I grew older, everything changed, everything became clearer. I would see them all the time. I would just not necessarily interact. And I thought, why do I even have this ability? What am I supposed to be
Hmm.
doing with it? And then in 1988, 87, I died in a motorcycle accident. And I went to the other side.
Uh-huh.
And Michael and my grandparents were there. And Michael says, "You have to understand who and what you are." He said, "The reason for you being here right now is because of that." And he touched my forehead, and all these lifetimes, you know, I experienced them all in a flash.
Uh-huh.
And he says, "Look upon yourself." And then this like mirror appeared out of nowhere. And I looked like him. I was like 7 feet tall. I had 12-foot wingspan, but I had like dark auburn hair, long, and
Hmm.
my eyes were like blue green. And it was just, I was dressed like a warrior. And he says, "This is who you truly are." He said, "Your body, your physical body was created to hold Ariel. She has been made to come back and relive lifetimes until she learns to have compassion for mankind." And then I'm like,
And
I
Ariel's an
thought
archangel.
Ariel's an archangel. She is a demon
Hmm.
slayer. She is one of the 5 that guard the throne of God.
Okay.
And so there's not much known about her. I mean, everything I know about her, I get from her, but her name means Lion of God.
Hmm.
And she can manifest when I do a removal. She manifests. Her consciousness comes forward and mine goes to the back. So I can see and hear and feel everything that she's doing. But people say they see wings coming out of my shoulders, that my eyes turn white, my voice changes, and my face changes. And people are like,
That's a
I always wondered why people looked at me funny. It's like, until one day a friend of mine says, "You do realize that this is what happens?" And I'm like, no, usually I'm a little busy doing the removal and I don't have a mirror and I don't care. It's the
right.
job at hand.
Well, let's go back and tell me about how this all started at the age of 5 or previous to that. You were being raised by your grandmother?
By my maternal grandmother. She was a psychic
Hmm.
medium. And Michael showed up from the moment my mother dumped me off on my grandmother. And he was always there constantly. And my grandmother would have conversations with him. And he told her, he says, "You need to understand that she's meant for greater things. She says, remember your prophecy," because there was a family prophecy from the 1400s in my grandmother's lineage. She's Irish, and said that there will be born a girl child with the ability to see, hear, communicate, and remove and kill demons. And every generation they would pass down the prophecy. And my grandmother said, "That's what I thought." She says, "I thought that she was the one." And so it's like he says, "You have to understand she has much work to do."
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't until I died, went to the other side, that I understood finally why I had that ability and what it was all about. And I have no fear of them. They don't bother. They'd rather be anywhere than where I am. That's for
Okay.
sure. So it's like in the war between heaven and hell, Lucifer was disarmed by Michael, and his son was disarmed by Ariel. And so they fear her and they respect her. They don't want to be wherever she is. And the stupid demons that encounter me, they at first they don't realize what's inside of me, because
Hmm.
they're like so many people in the physical world. They judge you by the outside. They don't see what's inside.
Okay.
And once she comes forward, they know they're screwed. And Time to leave.
So, how did you manage to? Well, let's go back a little bit more. After the motorcycle accident, you joined the military.
I joined the I was in the military from 76 to 81.
Uh huh.
And I encountered demons when I was in the military. I had my first one where I really interacted with one. Mostly I just ignored them. Was when I was working ER, and I was called in on a case where there was a young man that hadn't been at his job for several days, and that wasn't like him, and so they were concerned that he was maybe dead in his barracks.
Uh huh.
So we went to the barracks, and he opened the door, and myself and the other tech went in, and over to the left, I could see a demon, hovering towards the ceiling, and I'm like, "Oh God, really?" The guy was still breathing and everything, so we took him back to the emergency room, but I didn't think he would live much longer if we hadn't found him then.
Okay.
But we went back to the emergency room, and I went to get the stuff to start the IVs on him, and when I came back into the room, the demon was leaning over him and trying to pull the life force out of him.
Okay.
And I told him, I said, "Oh, no, you don't. Not that he belongs to us." And I could hear this voice, but I wasn't quite sure. What didn't sound like me, but it was coming from me. And it
Hmm.
said, "He belongs to us." And whatever the demon saw in my face, it like left in a hurry.
Okay.
And so I visited the young man a few days later when he was doing better. And he's a chaplain's assistant. And he said, "I had the strangest dream." I'm like, "Oh?" He says, "I dreamed that there was a demon and it was trying to take my life." He said, "And then the next thing I know, there's an archangel. She's huge, and she's looks vicious, and she scared the demon away." And I said, "Well," I said, "it's God's way of letting you know that he's watching over you."
Okay.
But somebody had put PCP in his soda,
Uh huh.
so he went kind of crazy for a few days. It was bad.
And while he was there, did he somehow invite the demon in? I mean, it
No,
was always my understanding from Malachi Martin they had to be invited in.
no, they don't have to be invited. They don't need an invitation.
Okay.
They'll come to you if you happen to be. Sometimes it's as simple as being in the wrong place at the right time. And he went to a party
Hmm.
on base at the barracks, and he usually doesn't attend parties. He's a devout Catholic, and he's the assistant to the chaplain. But he had a friend that talked him into going to the party, and this
Okay.
idiot who had the demonic attachment was the one who put the angel dust in his drink.
Uh huh.
And so it attached itself it went from that gentleman to the chaplain's
Clean
assistant.
because
Yeah.
his soul was cleaner. It was more of a
Yeah.
prize.
It's more of a feather in their cap if they can turn somebody who's a light worker like that, against the dark or
Okay.
to take their soul.
Where did you learn this kind of stuff from? Was it from doing it, or did your grandmother teach you, or did
Um,
Michael
my
explain it?
my my grandmother didn't have the ability to see them. She could sense
Hmm.
demons, but she couldn't see them. Her abilities were limited. But the minute I died and went to the other side, all of this information is downloaded
Okay.
into my head from Ariel, because Michael said, you need to be able to see what Ariel sees, feel what she feels. So he did what he calls a merge, where our consciousness now is one. I can, hear her thoughts, she can hear mine. If there's a negative around, I know about it. I know there's a demon
Okay.
coming before, months in advance before they even get here.
Hmm. Okay. That again is a gift I don't think I particularly want.
No, most people don't. Most people don't want it.
But I heard the same thing from the Warrens or read it in the
Yeah,
Demonologist that they knew the
yeah,
demons would try to scare them off before
hmm
they even
yeah.
started.
Before they even get there, yeah, that's what they do. But they can't do it with me, and it's like mess with the people that they're attached to or that they're bothering. But when
Uh-huh.
it comes to me, they can't do it. It's like, it's like, really bite me, whatever.
And have you you've saved lives, you've saved souls,
Mhm.
obviously.
Yeah.
Can you relate a story or two about that?
We had, I did a show called Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis. It's a friend of mine. And we did a 4-hour special. And I had got over like 200 requests for help in the first week. It was just
Yeah.
outrageous, And one of them was a local woman. And she said, I'm possessed. I've been possessed for 20 years. And I'm like,
Okay.
well, send me a picture of yourself. The minute I get the picture, I can tell what's there. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh crap. Yeah, there's was like 11 of them within this
Oh my
woman.
Lord.
And I'm like, really? So I asked my friend who's the ordained minister, I said, how would you like to go in on an exorcism? He's like, for real? I'm like, yeah. I said, you're always wanting to go with me. I said, there you go. I said, and you have a fear of the dark ones. I said, you can't have a fear of the dark ones and serve him. I said, so, you need to go with me. And
Mm-hmm.
then a friend of mine who is like the other half of Ghosts and Girls Paranormal that I started, she said she wanted to go. I said, you guys have to really prepare. I said, because this is not just your run of the mill type of case. I said,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about active possession. So they went with me. We arrived at the location and I knocked on the door and the woman answered, but she wasn't in control of herself. Her eyes were black and she was growling in Aramaic and told me, get the F out, you B. And I'm like, oh, and slams the door. I'm like, my friends are looking at me like, what? I'm like, it's okay. I said, it's no big deal. I said, so I knocked
Happens
on the
all the
door
time.
again. Yeah, knock on the door again. And she was in control this time and she came in. But I think the only reason she was in control because they weren't sure about me and they wanted to see what was going on. They wanted to check me out.
Okay.
And I told her, I said, I told my friend that Aaron, who's the minister, I said, you're gonna have to pray and you're gonna have to like really pray during this whole thing. I said, so never stop and never take your eyes off of the woman. And so right away I started the removal. And it took like 3 hours to remove them
Uh-huh.
all, except one. There was one left. And I didn't wanna harm the woman, so it's a matter of, because when meet a demon, when I connect with a demon, I can see into their mind. I can see how they found the person, what they
Okay.
want, what they're doing to the person, and why they're in possession, because that's a really big thing if you can find out why they're in possession.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I know what you did, or should I say didn't do. I said, you were supposed to do something for Lucifer and you just didn't bother to do it. And I said, he's looking for you. And
This
they
was
did,
to the
and
demon itself.
yeah, yeah, it's to the
Okay.
demon, the last one. And he's like, I'm not going back. I'm not leaving this woman. I'll kill her before I leave. And I said, how would you like to go back to the lights? I said, if are you would you like to do that? Would you like to go home? And he's like, you mean I can actually do that? I said, yes, if you're truly repentant for it, you can go to the light. And I said, I'll have Jesus come and take you if that's what you want. So I said, Jesus, come forth. My friends are standing in front of me and they part as this huge arm and hand come out towards the woman. And it's
They
like
saw this?
actually saw that with their physical eyes.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And the demon started to reach out and then it said, no, 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 you're lying. Because it was used to being lied to.
Sure.
And I'm like, so be it. I said, if that is you're not willing to go home, then Jesus withdrew his hand and I said, Lucifer, come forth. And this being appeared at the end of the hallway and walking towards us. And my friends are like freaking out.
I
And
think I would.
what they saw was a black figure in like a fedora and a double-breasted suit and spats, something from the old days.
Uh-huh.
And what I saw was his true image, but he came towards the woman and he says, "Demon," he said the demon's name. He says, "You come with me." And it said, "No, no, I'm not leaving her." And Lucifer looked at me and said, "I know you don't want me to harm the woman, so I will be back tonight for him." And then he turned and walked away and disappeared. So I told the woman what had happened in my conversation, because my conversations with the other side are all telepathic.
Mm-hmm.
So I told her, I said, "He'll come for him tonight." I said, "Don't worry about it." So we all went home and we went to our respective beds. And at 3 a.m., we all woke up at the same time and heard, "It's done." So I called the woman the next day and she's like, it's been years since I felt like this. She says, "I feel like there's nothing left inside of me except me."
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Really?" I said, "You have to go get some counseling." I said, after 20 years, I said, "You have PTSD. Go get counseling, please." So last thing I knew, she did. She was doing counseling. So that's good.
June, you just managed to send shivers down my spine. And with the things I've seen, that's difficult.
Yeah. It's just another
So
day.
so Lucifer himself came in
Hmm.
and basically, you could say, saved this woman by pulling the
Yeah.
demon out of her.
Yeah. But the only reason he did that was because he wanted retribution on the demon for not doing what he was told to do. He killed the demon, of
Okay.
course. That's the only
Okay.
reason he did it.
That's amazing. And what did you see? You say you saw his true form. Was it as an
Hmm.
archangel also, but black?
Black. Yeah. And his eyes, of course. He has gold eyes. These are the old demons always have gold eyes, and they have a lot more power and they're more intelligent than the lesser demons, who are the ones you
Okay.
usually find in the physical world. But yeah, there's a lot of pain and suffering and evil in the eyes. So I always see that. But I've learned over the years just not to, I don't let it affect me. I can't.
I don't know if I could do that. That's just, like I said, sun shivers right down me.
Yeah, if you
That's
don't, though, it becomes a weakness and they use that against you.
okay.
And you can't have any weakness when dealing with these things,
Hmm.
none whatsoever.
So that entity that had possessed her was
It was a
afraid to
lesser,
go
yeah,
back.
it was, because he knew that Lucifer would either kill him or torture him, take your pick.
Okay.
And he did torture him and he did kill him. So there you go.
Well, okay. That's, like I said, just it's something I've never considered before. I thought this was one big team all working together.
Not necessarily. Like I said,
But they have
if they go against Lucifer, it's all about, it's like he just cuts them off. He'll if he's feeling generous, he will
mhm.
entomb them in the earth, like the one that's buried under Alcatraz. And the one I went in on a case a few years ago, and there was one buried in the earth up in Battleground, Washington. And it's just a matter of, they're entombed there. If they come out, they know that he'll kill them. Simple.
So they being held there, or are they staying there to avoid him?
No, they're being held there. They're like chained
Okay.
to wherever they are.
And what will happen to them at the final battle, if that's what
They'll be
happens?
yeah, they'll be dead. They'll die. People think the demons can't die, but they can. The thing is, when we die, we can come back again,
Uh-huh.
But when a demon dies, that's it. Its consciousness is gone, its life force is gone. It no longer exists and it can't come back.
Okay. And any other things, stories you can tell us, or things we should be watching for?
Well, most people forget, when you do a lot of paranormal investigations and things, a lot of people forget that every time you do an investigation, every time you
Hmm.
do a reading, whether it's tarot or an intuitive reading or whatever, or using a device to communicate with, the other side. Every time you do that, it opens up a portal.
Okay.
And people don't understand. You got to close the portal. If you do
Hmm.
not close the portal, anything and everything can come right in and have a field day in the physical world.
Okay.
So I try to instill in people, ask for protection before you go on your investigation or before you use a recorder for an EVP session or whatever you're going to do, and then ask for the closure of the portal once it's done. And once you do that, then the angels on the other side will close it.
When I was ghost hunting a lot back in Missouri, and as you said, whenever a movie would come out or a TV show or whatever, suddenly everyone's possessed or got a demon in their house.
Yeah.
And I came across one possibly. I don't even know for sure. It filled in the blanks that I had read about. So I assume so. But when you go out and find out there is no demon there, how do you handle a ghost? Is it the same way?
Oh yeah, it's I a lot of times it is just a regular ghost. And I tell
Hmm.
them, this is the name of the ghost. If it's a male, female, whatever. This is how they died. This is why they're sticking around. And I said, I talked to the person that owns the house or whatever, and I say, well, they've requested either to go home or they've requested to remain at the house. And if they request to remain at the house, I talk to the client and I say, well, they want to stay. And what do you want to see happen? Do you want, what kind of boundaries do you want to set for them?
Hmm.
You know, and most of the time it's like, don't scare the kids, don't throw things on the floor, don't open the cabinets, and don't walk around the middle of the night, don't scare anybody. And a lot of times they just live happily together. I mean, they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's the ghost. It's not a big deal."
I have come across several times cases in which a human spirit pretends to be demonic in order to frighten people.
Right,
Have
right.
you had that also?
Oh, yeah, there was, I live close to Vancouver, Washington, and, there was a children's theater up there, and somebody contacted me and said, "Listen, we have a shadow person, and it's
Okay.
scaring all the kids, and can you come up and take care of it?" And I'm like, "Oh, okay, no problem." So I go up there, and I'm walking around the theater, and here's what purports to be a 7-foot shadow person. And for a split second, I see it that way, and it's it's revealed what it is. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
"Okay, you're showing everybody this guy, but this is who you are." I said, "He's a short, fat, balding guy who never got any respect in life, and so he's darn sure gonna get it in death." And I told him, I said, "Really? Grow some." I said, this is not gonna happen anymore." I said, "I'm sending you
Uh-huh.
home. I don't care if you don't wanna go or not." I said, "You're going." So it's like I sent him home. I told him what I had found. I'm like, "Don't worry about it. They can do that. They can show themselves as, a shadow person, or they can make you see them as a demon or whatever. It's all about what they put into your mind for you, how to see them." And if,
Okay.
like me, if they can't do that, then, you know, they don't can't have any fun, darn it.
So to continue that, um, when when I see or when others see spirits, you'll see your husband of 40 years from when
Mhm.
he looks 30.
Yeah,
Or is that the image they're putting in because that's how they see themselves?
right.
Is
It's either how they see themselves, or it was when they were that age, it was the happiest times of their life.
Mhm.
And they want the individual to remember them that way and not remember them as sick or remember them as old,
Mhm. When I
so
was
they can project that.
I see myself when I'm thinking about it as a young guy with hair and a little less body mass, because that's how I remember myself. So,
Yeah,
and that's what I
exactly.
always assumed was why we see them younger, is because for the
Yeah.
same thing,
Mhm.
they picture themselves at whatever time, like you said, they were happiest.
Right. And that they weren't ill or, they weren't dying.
Hmm.
And
That's
that's,
interesting.
and that's, you have to learn to accept that. And like when I'm doing a reading and the individual comes through, the grandparent, the parent, whatever, they will show themselves to me as, they wish to be perceived. Like one lady is like, I said, well, your mother looks around 30. I said, I'm sure she wasn't when she died. I said, but
Hmm.
that's how she's showing herself. And then I go on to tell them, how her personality is and things like that. And I go, oh, yeah, that's mom. Yeah, I'm like, okay. I said, well, she just wants you to know that she's fine and that this is how she looks now and she's happy with it.
Okay. The first story you told, you said you had a demon chained.
Hmm.
How do you do that? That sounds impossible to me.
It's quite simple, really. Ariel can do it. She
Okay.
just creates chains out of white light energy and it entraps the demon. It's like recreate what we call an infinity orb. And it's a pure white light orb. It's like a giant bubble.
Hmm.
And you hold it in your hands, and it's all about pulling the demon or pulling the negative human spirit into the bubble to entrap it. And once it's
Okay.
entrapped, you can send it either home or back to the dark, depending upon whichever you want to do. But
You said that about the man in the children's theater. When you
mhm.
say send him home, do you mean to the next realm, to judgment, or back to the house he lived in
No,
when he was a
just sent
little
them to
human?
the other side, to the white light.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what you call home, is sending him
Yeah,
back
home to
to
God. Home to
creation.
God. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, June, that's incredible. You've wrote some books.
Mhm.
Medium's Guide to the Paranormal.
Yeah.
What is
It's
that?
It's a basic primer for, it's got covers a lot of, it gives a little bit of information about a lot of different subjects. Everything from ghosts to demons to marriage to heaven, how the other side perceives it, how we perceive it.
Okay.
And it's a basic primer. A lot of people like it because I write the way I talk, like, I'm having a conversation with the person
Hmm.
and giving them the information that I think was most valuable to them. It's written in a very easy to read way of, so that everybody who reads it can understand.
Okay.
And I was, because God asked me to write the book. I wasn't even looking to write a book. I wrote a book I wrote that one in 2009 and
Hmm.
published it. And he says, I want you to write a book and I want you to let people know that I do hear their prayers, but I give them what they need, which is not necessarily what they want.
Of course.
And he said, I want you to, just let people know about that. And I don't care what else you put into the book. So I'm like, okay. So it took me a year to write it and I put it all together. And then the two other ones, the Paranormal Encounters book 1 and 2, are some of my real life paranormal encounters.
Uh huh.
And the dark side. For years, people were after me to write about the dark side. I had done the Body, Mind, and Spirit Expo. People have been after me to, go do it, So I went and did it, and they said, "Well, you're going to talk about angels." I said, "No." So I'm going to talk about the dark side. And so I lecture. As I got into the lecture, and I'm like, "Holy crap! It's wall to wall bodies." And people were like, coming by for, the thing was a weekend event, and people were coming by and just like, I'm so glad you talked about it. It's something that needed to be done, blah, blah, blah. A lot of questions. I sold out my books in the first hour. I'm like, oh my
That's pretty good.
goodness. Okay. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'll write a book about the dark side. And the dark side really gives a lot of information about how they work, what their fears are, what their weaknesses are, what can, protection, what you can use for protection and stuff. And it's really quite interesting. It's packed with a lot of information, their abilities, how they work, their MOs, that sort of stuff. And I have had so many people tell me, this has really helped me. It's really saved my life. And I'm like, good. That's why I wrote it, to help people understand what's there and how to help themselves.
And what advice do you give to people to avoid this kind of a problem, this kind of a situation?
Yeah, to avoid a problem is quite simple. If you say you're on a paranormal investigation and you see what looks like a shadow person, right? And you say to your friend, "Hey, Fred, I just saw a shadow person." And the guy's like, "Cool, let me come over there and see." Right? And the minute you acknowledge it, that it's there, you make it see you. And you don't want it to see you. Because if you don't acknowledge it and you just go about your business, it won't bother. It'll just move on or, go somewhere else. But the minute you acknowledge it, it's on. They can follow you home, they can make your life a living hell. It depends upon, the mood that they're in that day, if they
Okay.
decide to follow you or not. So the best thing to do is just not acknowledge it at all. If you think you have one in your house or a location, absolutely do not sage it. Do not sage the
Really?
location, because if you sage it, that to the demon says, "Oh, they know I'm here."
Hmm.
And the activity ramps up exponentially. It goes off the charts.
Well, that's
You
something
got
I've never heard before.
Oh, yeah. Try it sometime. You won't want to, because it'll really ramp up the activity. Oh, yeah, you'll
Hmm.
piss it off, basically.
But
And
are all shadow persons demonic? Because I've
yes.
seen many,
Mhm.
and most
If
of
it's
them.
a if it's a real shadow person, they are a
Hmm.
minion, a demonic minion, and they like their own territory. They don't like other
Okay.
shadow people in their territory. They don't like other demons in their territory. They just want it all to themselves. You usually
Hmm.
don't see more than one in a location because they do like their own territory. But if you
Okay.
do have more than one, then you got an issue.
Yeah, sounds like it. So, how long have you been doing this now?
I'm gonna tell my age. I've been doing it since 1976.
Wow. So you was doing it at the beginning of the Exorcist movie coming out, and
Yeah, I never
went
saw that
through.
movie.
You probably don't want to, but
No.
Amityville, all the movies that caused a upswing in this
Yeah,
kind of stuff, this
yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
phenomenon.
And people are more aware now. They start, if they've got like
Hmm.
things moving in their house or growling in their house or something going on in their house, they're more aware of things, and they'll watch for, signs and symptoms, so to speak. But it has brought more awareness.
Hmm.
And that can be good, but it can also be bad, because
What's your
these things.
They're, yeah, not good.
Yeah.
What's your opinion of, let's say, Father Martin, Malachi Martin? I've read a couple of his books about this.
Um, it's his book is interesting,
Hmm.
but, but a lot of things he's off the mark. But,
Okay.
but I've been
No.
dealing with them a long time, and I can actually see them in their true form. I can actually hear them. I can actually understand them. And that's
Hmm.
the difference than someone who is like a clergy and goes through the rendition of, the liturgy of trying to get rid of it, and, reciting the same thing over and over and over. That will take time, that will take a toll on an individual, but I don't have to do that. I can do it from a distance. I don't even have to be there.
Okay. And the
And
Warrens,
it only takes me a few seconds.
that's a surprise.
I like the Warrens. I mean, they're very good at what they did, and it was
Hmm.
she always brought in, and she validated what it was. She always brought in the Catholic Church, and she had that in with
Right.
the Catholic Church, and that's how she believed, that they were the ones to be able to get rid of them, because, well, really, nobody had ever heard of someone like me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there
But
are actually 7 of archangels in human form in the world today, but
In general, though, can you reason with them? With your abilities.
They don't, they don't. They'll say, well, they'll try to tell me like, well, I should be allowed to stay here because this person summoned me, so therefore they invited me in. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, really? Do you think I care? And then they start arguing with me. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to argue with you. And Ariel just pulls out a white light sword and slices through it, and it's gone. It's like, there you
Are
go. That
there
answers your questions.
are there any more of those archangels like Ariel here in the
There are 7 of
U.S.?
us. There are 7 of us altogether. There
Uh-huh.
are 3 in the United States, and I know where they all are. And there's 1 in Italy, there's 1 in France, there's 1 in Scotland, and I'm friends with all
Wow.
of them.
Ouija boards. Let's hit the white elephant in the room.
Ah, yes, the white elephant. It's a tool like anything. I mean, you could put a glass on a table and put letters around, and there you go. It's a tool if you use it for good or you use it for bad. If One of the things I learned when I went to the other side is that in the dark realm and the light realm, thought becomes reality, and it is the intention behind the thought that gives it power. So if your intention, say you have a Ouija board, and your intention is to do good, is to contact like an angel or your grandma or your grandpa or whatever, and your intention is to do good, and you say a prayer before it, and you ask for God's guidance, then you're not going to have a problem. If you go in wanting to get a hold of a demon, then you're going to get a hold of a demon. If your intention is
And
to, you want to summon something.
and a bag of problems, obviously. I
Oh
like the
yeah,
way you think, though, June. I agree with you. Intent is everything, and Ouija
yep.
boards themselves are not evil,
No, it's just a
but they
tool.
they can be misused.
Yes, they can very well be misused, and they can be vilified when it's just cardboard and plastic. I mean, you know what? Like I said, you do the same thing with the glass, or you can do the same thing with
Hmm.
divining rods. It's all about how you utilize them, and if you bless the board, you bless whatever you're using. You know,
Okay. Well, in the few minutes we've got left, where can people get your
they
books?
can go on Amazon.com and they can pick up my books. My newest book will be released the end of this month. It's called Demon
Uh-huh.
Seer: The Awakening, and it talks about how the negative entities work in the world today, behind the scenes, what they're doing, how to prevent yourself from getting caught up in it. I have 2 really good chapters that towards the end that people have asked me to put in. One of them is protection, what really will protect you and what won't.
Uh-huh.
And the other one is how to help yourself and where to find help.
Okay.
And the Johnson brothers have agreed to be in, as give their information to be a part of the book for
Was
people
that
to
the
get help.
twins that used to be
Yeah,
on
the
Ghost
twins.
Hunters many years?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the
Okay.
twins. And Ron Fael, who is the Archbishop of the Order of St. Michael of Exorcists in LA, a friend of mine. He's agreed, and Father Bailey. There's some other ones in there that are just that I've talked to, and they've agreed to be in it. So all the information is in that chapter about how to get a hold of them and everything else.
How about if they want to get hold of you? Can they go through Mystic Connections?
Yeah, if they want to get a hold of me, they just go to mysticconnections.org, and there's a
Hmm.
contact page, and you just click on that, and it sends an email to me, and I will usually respond within 72 hours, and we'll take care of things. And I usually ask that people send a picture, and if because then I can see what is there, how long it's been there, what it's been doing. And like I
Okay.
said, I don't need to actually see the person in person. I can do it from a distance. I've removed them from as far away as the Netherlands and Australia.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. You mentioned protections for the ghost hunters that watch the show. What's a couple of things they can do to protect themselves?
Holy water is good. Prayer is good. I have what I created. It's called a black salt. It's not your typical black salt. The recipe was given to me by the Archangel Michael, and it's blessed by God at each step of the making of it. I make it by
Uh-huh.
hand, and it's never failed in 40 years.
And will
You
that be
put it,
available in the
you
book?
um, you can get it on my website. You can order on my
Okay.
website, and you can seal your home, your land with it. You can carry it in a little packet or a necklace on you, and when it's carried in a necklace for protection, it actually heats the necklace up, and that's how you can tell when it's working. It's when it's protecting, it gets hot. And my friends, I have a sister group I formed in the UK,
Uh-huh.
and they wear them whenever they go, and they can actually feel them heating up when they're in the presence of negatives.
When they're in when they're in the presence of the demonic, not
Yep.
necessarily human spirits.
Yeah, human spirits, no. It won't protect you against human spirits. That you can use white salt for, but
Mhm.
anything that's inhuman, the black salt will protect you from.
That's neat, and they can order that from your site.
Yeah, yeah, from my side. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's incredible. Wow, this has been an exciting time for me because the demonic is interesting. That's why I read all those books, but it's something I've avoided like the plague
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
just I don't need that in my life. Got enough of
No,
my
no.
own issues I've created. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's not good.
well, June Lundgren, thank you for coming in and for sharing this with us. Your stories have been incredible.
Just a day in the life. Right, and I'm married to a guy, if you can't touch it, feel it, or see it, it doesn't exist. So there you go.
And what
Until
does
he
he think about
until
this?
until he saw a shadow person one day, and then
Uh
his
huh.
whole way of thinking about it changed.
I've had so many people tell me that they don't believe in this and come on 3 hunts with me and see what happens. And
Yeah,
by the third
exactly.
hunt, if they stick with me, they'll see something they cannot explain.
I
So
know, right?
I think that's the best part. That and when I give someone a pair of dowsing rods and they say, "My God, it's moving."
Yeah, look at it, it's moving. Oh my god, oh my god.
All right. Well, June Lundgren, thank you again. Your website is
MysticConnections.org.
mysticconnections.org.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thanks again for coming in, and we'll talk to you again soon because you have some awesome stories.
All right, you take care. It was a pleasure to be talking to you.
Yeah. And thanks again. You've been great.
Thank you.
All right, folks. That just about wraps us up this day. And demons bother me. And I don't mean they bother me because I still am not sure I've ever dealt with one, but boy, that's a weird section. You get involved in it, they can destroy you, and they don't fight fair. I always hated that Buffy the Vampire Slayer could fight them because these guys go after your bank accounts, health of your children, grandchildren. Just they are evil. That's what they're here for. And I've tried to avoid it, but I do like talking to the folks who have the ability and the faith to stand up to them. Real quick, I do want to hit again that coming up May 13th and 14th is the XCon Into the Rabbit Hole. I mentioned this last week, and let me tell you, this thing is, well, as I said, huge. Whitley Strieber, Margie Kay, Jimmy Church, some huge people in the paranormal field, in the UFO field, and I'll be there too. Not anything like them, but I will have some evidence and some things we've done. So, again, it's $29 a day. And I've done a lot of these conferences all over the country. And when you go to get a hotel room, drive there or fly there and eat out and all of that stuff, it's going to cost you so much less. And besides, the prices for these places usually run into the $50, $60 a day range. But you're looking at being able to sit at home and watch it yourself. That's great. So, again, May 13th to 14th, I'll be speaking on the 13th. Big names. Go to, well, it's right there below. It's unxnetwork.com. Click on the upcoming, it's XCon tickets, and I hope to see you there. And until then, or until next week, stay spooked.